because it's because of the nature of this, I think what I'm going to do right now is just, I know we've all read it, but I'm going to read it again out loud, okay? So the title is the Declaration of America's Immense Offense. And it's written from the perspective of somebody in Britain. So it says, I am not jealous, not at all. America can do what it likes. They are more than welcome to start their own country. They can turn their backs on Great Britain, spit on the king, and leave behind the very country that made them. Mark my words, this country called America will not work. Even if they have written this very popular Declaration of Independence, have you heard of the man who wrote this document? Thomas Jefferson is the man who wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence. He's also its youngest writer. Some people are so spoiled. Sounds like me talking to you guys, right? Great Britain has given that country everything. It shipped them across the sea, paid for everything to be set up, and now all the king wants is to be paid through taxes. Yet this young man, Mr. Jefferson, says that they owe us nothing. Tell me, if one of your employees started a business across the river that did not pay your business any heed, would you feel fine about it? Well, I would not. They say he will be the leader of America someday. They call them presidents, and they change them by voting. Ha! No way that will last. How can a country last with such poor ideas? I mean, have you heard the opening of this piece of writing? The preamble is the opening to the Declaration of Independence. It says, and I quote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, blah, blah, blah. That we do not want to be a part of your country from this time on. That first idea, though, that all men have the same rights, the words have never been written down, and for good reason. Mr. Jefferson has some very funny ideas. The new American government will go by natural law, which basically says that all men have equal rights. They all get a say in how the country is run. No more king? How will people know what to do without a king? Who will make sure that everyone has enough work? Yes, I know that our king can get greedy sometimes, overtaxing us and using it for his own wealth. But the idea that a country can work without a king is laughable. These Americans are behaving just like little children. King George III gave them everything and they want to give nothing back. Theirs is a country built on a grievance, the belief that they've been wronged in some way. Is paying taxes to the country that helped you get started wrong? Is honoring your king who rules by God's decree over our country wrong? If that's the truth, then I am wrong. I guess there will never be a place for minds like mine in the country called America. People in America believe that the Declaration of Independence is a great piece of writing. They say this Thomas Jefferson has a way with words and showed it by writing something that called America a free country. The preamble tells all other countries that they are now their own government and want us to accept it. It also says that all men are created equal, which means they govern by natural law, and so should be able to make choices about their own country. What? Of course I have not read the Declaration of Independence. It's nothing more than a grievance against King George III, who has been wronged. He is the one who paid for their country in the first place. Yes, I'm happy to stay here in England. The great America test will not work. We'll see. So what do we think?
Okay, well, it sounds...
Go ahead.
It sounds like the king has like a musket to his head, like making him write this down. And it's like, oh, I don't want to go to America. It doesn't seem that good. It seems like he's like, it's all fake.
That's an interesting take on it. Go ahead.
I feel like the person that wrote this could have been like maybe one of the king's best guards or something. Because it feels like this person that wrote it feels like they're really against the idea of America and saying how everything will be not work and being negative about it.
And you can choose the next person. You choose.
It seems like the person has like sort of an old-fashioned way of thinking. That's what you want to call it.
Old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Like this
Just thinking that the king is right and not everybody's equal.
Yeah.
against what
That's-
American beliefs.
Alright, you can go. I will. I do want to chime in a moment.
So I think that this person like feels resentment and he doesn't think America will make it, obviously. So like when I think of this person, I think of somebody who maybe isn't all the way up there, but like is kind of higher on the like the pyramid of, you know, because he says that people aren't equal, but I know for a fact that the people who are lower, you know, don't like wish that they were equal. So. Lucas.
Well, I feel like this person has a personal vendetta against Thomas Jefferson.
Sounds
Because he's like, oh, this person is so young, but he wrote the first draft. He didn't point out anything else except the Declaration of Independence and Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, all right. Let me chime in here for a moment. When the writer is saying somewhat derogatory things, right? The idea that he's the youngest writer is supposed to somehow discredit Thomas Jefferson, right? What fallacy is that? We talk about.
Oh, it's bias, right? Or not? It's.
We talk about it specifically with seminar. You guys remember? It's on the rubric. It's ad hominem, right? He's attacking the man instead of the issue. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Haley.
I don't get why he likes the king so much, because the king, he's like all in like awe in the king, but the king's overtaxing him, and then he said it that he uses all the money for his own wealth and stuff, and that he's greedy and stuff.
Yeah, he admits it, right?
Yeah.
This guy, while he writes this, he seems like the kind of person that doesn't want to try new things, and he's already like putting all these bad ideas about America in his head when he hasn't even like, again, tried like or read the Declaration of Independence. He's just putting all these bad ideas in his head.
Okay, a couple interesting things that have come up here. One, he admits that they are being overtaxed, right? Gabe, you had a point that was similar to mine. And I just lost it. What did you just say?
No, he has all these bad ideas about America in his head when he's never even been, and he's already saying how it's going to fail. And
Oh, I know what it was. He admits he doesn't. He says he didn't even read it, right?
Yeah,
that was the point. Okay.
This person sounds like he thinks rice is spicy. I'm just gonna say that. But like, okay. He thinks that a country can't live without a king, someone who overtaxes them. Like, I feel like he wanted to be in America,
That's
but
not-
something,
I feel like
Interesting.
because
something didn't let him, and now he's like, oh, I didn't even want to go there anyway, or oh, like when a kid wants to go to Disneyland, but they have to do their homework, and they're like, okay, I wouldn't go there anyway. It's trash.
because out of nowhere he says, "What? I didn't read the Declaration of Independence," but like it didn't like ask him kind of.
But he
So it's
knew
kind
an
of
awful
like-
lot about it for somebody that
Yeah.
hadn't read it. Go
That's
ahead.
what I was gonna say. He says that he doesn't like he hasn't read it, but I'm like, how does like he knows so much about it and he's always talking about it in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And
And what I wanted to say was, when he mentioned that all men have the same rights and they've never been written down in paper for a good reason, like he didn't even say the good reason. Like he just brought it up and left it hanging.
Okay, so this leads me into a question that I have for you that I think we've discussed before, but we discussed this. In the preamble, it does say that all men are created equal. What does that mean? Are all men created equal?
that it means that we all have the right to do whatever we want without any limitations by like a king or government. Like if this person could go eat sushi, I could go eat sushi.
Okay.
When they wrote it, it really only applied to like the white men.
I think you're right. This was a time of slavery.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was gonna say, is when they say that all men are created equal, first they're not including women, and they're only including white males, so it's kind of not really a true statement in their minds. I mean, obviously it's true, but they didn't think it was at that time.
Yeah, so now we're talking about a little bit of an anachronism, right? Where we take something and we apply today's morals to it. Yeah.
So he said he doesn't like America, but at that time he's kind of agreeing with America because America said said all like white men are supposed to be created equal, and he said he like didn't think all men are created equal. Like
Well-
he doesn't want all of them to be equal, kind of. So it's like kind of the same thing.
Yeah, which goes back to, I forget who made the comment, but that this is probably I think it was Brooke, you said this was probably a person higher up in a hierarchy.
Now the thing is, I don't think when he read that, the one where it's like all people are created equal, I think he took that literally when he thought all people are created equal, like not just white males. He thought they meant everyone.
Yes, okay, so I think what Lucas is saying here is that, especially if we go with what Brooke said, which I tend to agree with, that this is supposed to come from somebody of a higher stature, it would be laughable to him to believe that a peasant and he are on the same level. Certainly not a slave, which is property anyway, is not considered a person, right? What else?
Like, okay, anybody reading this, like, what style did you think? What did people think it was, like, ironic or, like, they were taking it seriously or anything?
So he was saying, so he kind of admitted that the king uses his taxes for his own wealth, but then he mentions, wait, I'm so sorry, I lost it. He mentions that King George III gave him everything, but he also took a lot of their money. He kind of like gave them a lot of stuff to sell so they could buy it. So.
Yeah, so Road to Revolution, right? All those acts, intolerable acts. Go on, section.
To answer Lucas's question about the style or genre, I think it's not. I don't even know if this is classified as like a style or genre, but I think it's kind of like maybe he's writing a letter to someone, kind of saying how he feels about America and like just telling them how he feels or whatever.
It's an interesting thought because he starts it off with, I'm not jealous. That's kind of a weird way to start off.
Yeah.
Like, it almost feels like a conversation.
Okay, wait, maybe it sounds like this person who wrote this had like a relative that went to America and found it, like enjoyed America with all the freedom and stuff. And then like he wrote to his brother saying, no, I'm not jealous that you're in America enjoying your freedom and not here in the UK enjoying true freedom. It sounds like someone who's in America and is mad about that.
That's kind of how I felt when I first read it.
When I read it, I could tell that it was kind of written ironically and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because you can tell that this was a more of a modern piece because he it's not really that formal, and I feel like back then all the writing was much more formal and stuff. Like he says "ha," and he's and also not to mention that it says the year that it was made.
Well, that's true too. That's interesting because when I read it too, I kind of felt like this sounds like a kid who's, what's the appropriate term? Jealous, maybe, right?
Well, if you're looking at it more like a literal sense, it's like a bad persuasive essay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you though, let me throw this question out. Are there any good points in here? Does he bring up any good points?
Where was it? So he makes a connection between the king founding the people, bringing them there, and then the people going across the river and starting up their own business. I would be upset about that, like if I had a business and my employees just left and made another one.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at too. Right.
Well, he does make some good points about, like, I mean, they did have a king at least, and then they kind of just went against it. At least they had a king. I mean, someone that could help rule the government, but he did it in a bad way, so he taxed them way too much and made them pay a lot of money just so he could do use it for
Well, and if you remember Road to Revolution, it wasn't just, what was the other part of that? It wasn't just they're being taxed, they're being taxed
Yeah.
and taxation.
And without
Yes,
representation.
without
Yeah.
representation, exactly. Okay.
This is another thing. He makes it really clear that he's on like Great Britain's side, so that because he says that like Great Britain made them and like like why they turned it back. So I think he's like mad at like America for like turning it back, but also kind of like with it, but doesn't want to like show it kind of.
Okay.
I can see both sides of the argument. I mean, I agree with America in this sense because, like, they were being treated poorly and stuff. So but I can also understand that the king would have been pretty mad if like this whole group of people just left his what he created kind of. So I can.
Okay, so you see both sides. Go ahead, you can choose. Like, you just stop talking.
Like, that was what I was trying to explain. She
Okay.
just put it in better words. And he brought up the Declaration of Independence like a lot. And I feel like he started to believe that there's a sentence that says, people in America believe that the Declaration of Independence is a great piece of writing.
Last paragraph.
Yes. And it showed in writing that it's called a free country, right? So I feel like the person that wrote this started to believe that the Declaration of Independence kind of started to be their new king on a piece of paper. Like they started to follow this piece of the paper. Like they follow the king, they follow the piece of paper and what their laws are, like what it says, because they really believe in this Declaration of Independence. And I feel like
It's an
he
interesting
felt
take.
like he didn't really understand why we follow it.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
And so one thing I'm kind of confused about is I'm wondering if he lived in the colonies under Britain's rule or if he was in the UK, because if he was in the UK, he might have been oblivious to what was happening back at the colonies, so he wouldn't understand why they rebelled against colonies. But maybe if he was in the original colonies, maybe he was, again, rich, wealthy, didn't mind the taxes,
I think the answer's in the text. If we look at the bottom of the last paragraph, he does say, I'm happy to stay here in England. I think that would mean that, but it's a good question, because it would make a difference, wouldn't it?
yeah.
So,
It's okay. He says in the last, one of the last sentences, the great American test will not work. So he's kind of saying that, he thinks it's like a kind of they're gonna test it out like an experiment and see how it works. And then if it doesn't work, it's gonna go back to being like Britain or something.
yeah, he clearly does not. What's that?
18 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, he clearly does not, at least wants to give the impression that he does not think that this is going to be something that works.
And in the last paragraph, he also says that, he as in king, he is the one who paid for their country in the first place. But I feel like that's not true because the colonists had to pay so much in taxes, so the colonists would taxes in a lot just so they could.
So even if he had paid for everything, you're suggesting they paid him back in full, right?
And they didn't even get their promised land.
Exactly.
So,
Right. After the Treaty of Paris, right? The French and Indian War, they were supposed to be allowed to move west over the Appalachians. Right?
it's I think he was just totally oblivious to that because he didn't know that there was land to be moved into that was taken away from them. He didn't know about the taxes without representation. So I guess he was just going out on a limb saying all these crazy things without anything to back him up, really.
He's maybe arguing from ignorance, which is another
Yeah.
one of our fallacies.
I also thought that the writer was kind of like conceited because in my opinion, America, like when we wrote the Declaration of Independence and stuff, we wrote it so that we could be free. And he kind of, in his opinion, like he said that it was just like kind of a retaliation thing, saying like, hey, you were mean to us, whatever. And like America just did that to kind of get back at England. So I thought that was kind of like,
Yeah, if you look at the second to last paragraph, the very first line, it says they're behaving like children, like little kids, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. This, and I don't know if you're quite going to make this connection, but in the second paragraph, close to the end there, it says, is honoring your king who rules by God's decree over our country wrong? How does the Constitution feel about God's decree? Go ahead, Rob.
They got to believe in what they believe.
We have, or we just took the Bill of Rights test.
The First Amendment says you have free religion, so like maybe not everyone believes in God.
Okay.
So they didn't really like the rule that had he ruled under God, because maybe some people don't agree.
Is that what you're going to say with this? Or?
Yeah.
Religion.
Okay. What do we do in this country with religion and government?
We don't associate the two.
And we separate. We have what's called the separation of church and state. Right? Monarchies rule by divine decree, meaning some way they were chosen by God. Right? We don't. Our presidents are not chosen by God. They're chosen by us. Right? Okay. Why don't you guys fill out your rubrics and we'll move on. Take me. I think you can stop here. Thank you.